Namaskar. My name is Dada Jyotirupananda. I work as a public relations secretary in Berlin sector since the late 1990s. I've been here. And to start at the beginning, I first found Ananda Marga in 1973. I was interested in some good meditation, working with people who had some values, not just I want to meditate. And I gradually met some Margis through a friend of a brother, etc., or a brother of a friend. And I didn't really know anything about Ananda Marga then. I just heard the name. But one day I was going to go to another town about a 4-hour drive away to see a famous American yogi named Ram Dass who was giving a talk. Now, as I'm giving this interview, it's on the 11th of February 2021, very close to Nilakanta Divas. And this relates to the story that I'm going to tell right now. So I got in a car with a friend and two of his friends driving this 3 or 4 hours to the other town. Turns out they're all part of this Ananda Marga. And again, as I said, I'd heard the name, but I didn't know anything about it. It also turned out that Ananda Marga was sponsoring the talk by this famous yogi so that they could raise money for some social service projects that they had in their town. And I thought, oh, this is good. They're doing meditation, but they also do service. I thought this sounds okay. So we arrived in the small town called Carbondale, where actually, as I later found out, Ananda Marga first started in USA, in Carbondale. And instead of going straight to the talk, we went to the Ananda Marga house, and they did some meditation. So I joined in. First, they did some strange dance with a strange mantra called Bhavanam Kevalam. And then we sat for meditation, and it was nice. And after the meditation, one of the Margis stood up to give an announcement before the talk that we were all going to attend in another part of the town. And her announcement was, and remember, I knew nothing about Ananda Marga or the guru. Her announcement was, Baba, our guru, has been poisoned in jail, so we must take some action. Words like that. So you can see my first introduction to Ananda Marga was some good meditation, but also that their guru was in jail and someone disliked him so much that they had poisoned him. So I think for many people, they would have politely walked out of the room and said goodbye. But for me, well, this seems interesting. So we went to the talk that night, and I gradually got to know more in my hometown about Ananda Marga. And eventually a Dada came, and he gave a talk one night. Pardon me. And the next day at their center, I approached him and asked if I could learn meditation from him, take initiation. Now, I had been doing another type of popular meditation for about 2 years. But Dada said, okay, we'll meet on such and such a day. But until then, take this mantra, Bhavanam Kevalam, which I had heard, and just meditate with that. And he explained that it's not a proper meditation mantra, but it's something you can do until you have learned the proper meditation, the initiation. And for the next 2 days or so, I did my normal meditation. Then I did Bhavanam Kevalam. And for the 15 minutes or so that I sat every day for Bhavanam Kevalam, I felt that this was much deeper than the other meditation I had been doing. So I thought, if this is just the pre-meditation, what is the meditation like? So I, of course, took initiation from the Dada and got to know a little bit about Ananda Marga, and gradually, slowly, compared to some people, I got involved with Ananda Marga. And then after some years, having gone to some retreats and had a posting of unit secretary in my town, I decided to become an LFT. And after being an LFT for some time, Baba was, of course, in jail during that time. I started to meet Margis and Acharyas who had seen Baba in jail. And some of them had seen Baba in India before he had been in jail. But somehow I didn't have the travel bug in me so much. So I was hesitating. India, long distance, people get sick, so many problems. I saw the problems rather than the advantages, shall we say. But in 1979, we heard that Baba was going to come to Europe. So I booked a ticket for London, and off I flew. I stayed in the Jagrati for several days with the Margis and one or two acharyas, and every day we were asking, is Baba arriving yet? Is Baba in Europe yet? And every day we'd hear, well, maybe he's coming, maybe we're not sure when he's coming, and the drama built up. Finally, we heard Baba is coming to Europe. And so I, along with a good number of other Margis, such as Mita and Govinda, uh, Mira and others, we all got in a big van that they had, and we drove down to Switzerland. And when we got to Switzerland, one of the first things we heard that was that Baba had been in Heathrow Airport, right in London. But the Margis had all left to go to Switzerland by that time. So Baba was innocently or perhaps jokingly asking, where are the Margis? When of course he knew we were all rushing down to Switzerland to see him. And later we thought, oh, we could have been with Baba in a small, quiet situation if we had only known that and stayed in London another day. But still we got to Fiesh, okay. And I, of course, had never seen Baba in person. I'd seen videos. And through my meditation, I had realized that, yes, he is Taraka Brahma. He is the Sadguru. And there's many other ways you can describe Baba's nature, who Baba really is. So I did have a spiritual idea of who Baba was, his quality of being Taraka Brahma. But I had never, as I said, I'd never seen him. So I guess we had all got settled in Fiesh, and then I guess the first full day we were there, Baba came out. He came to the large room, formerly a gymnasium, now a darshan room, that we were using, and there were hundreds of Margis there. And finally, we hear Parampita Baba Ki over and over and over again. And then Baba walks in. I was sitting on the far side from where, with the brothers, from where Baba did come in. And I was probably expecting, yes, maybe some grand vision I'll have, or some ecstasy and samadhi, whatever. But Baba walked in, and actually what I saw was a short man, well dressed as an Indian gentleman with glasses, accompanied by some acharyas, including, of course, Dada Ramananda. And then he gave a talk. It was not a long talk that first time, as I recall. But I walked out, and it was very good to see Baba, but I didn't have any real ecstasy or anything like that. It was just, here's Baba. And I was, of course, wanting to have some grand spiritual experience, but we have to wait. We can't always, perhaps we can never plan the time of having these great situations with Baba. So Fiesh went on, and of course, an important thing, if you've not seen Baba, is to have personal contact. And here I was in a way a foreigner, although properly known as a foreigner in Ananda Marga, but I was from another sector. I knew one or two Dadas in Europe, in Berlin sector, and I maybe had known one or two Margis before that. So to try to get personal contact when all the acharyas were trying to get their local Margis to have personal contact was very difficult. But I had one, shall we say, hope or key. Before I'd left USA, I met Dada Mahavirananda, who at that time was posted in Prout. And of course, he knew I was going to Fiesh. So he wrote me a note to give to Dada Ramananda. I didn't see the note myself, except he gave it to me in an envelope. And but presumably the note said, please, if you can ask, help Brother Jaya Krishna, my name at that time, to have personal contact, that will be nice. So the second or third day, I got up my courage to approach Dada Ramananda. Now, Baba was staying in one house, a little bit away from where most of us were staying, in one of the other residential buildings. And this one afternoon, I saw Dada standing there on the porch in front of Baba's house, and he was alone, which I think is kind of a miracle. And so I kind of shyly approached him and said, "Oh, Dada, I've got a note from Dada Mahavirananda. He'd like you to read this if you can." And so I gave the note to Dada, and in my hope, in my dreams, he would have opened the note right there, read it through, maybe read it a second time and said, oh yes, we'll schedule it such and such time. But what actually happened was Dada Ramananda put that note in his pocket. And in my mind, he put that note so deep that I could imagine it would never come out and see the daylight again. And of course, I did not get personal contact in Fieschi. There were just too many people there, too many local Margis. But by the end of Fieschi, I was resolved to the fact that, yes, I'm going to travel with Baba anyway, as much as I can during Europe, during his tour in Europe. So let's see when I can get personal contact. Now, this is, I don't know if you call this exactly a Baba story, but it was a curious incident that happened. One day I was going over toward Baba's house, and from our residence, you walk through a small forest area, a small wooded area, shall I say. There's a path or two there. And as I was walking through this wooded area, eager to get to Baba's room, Baba's house, and see if I can see him, I met Dr. Patak, I think his name was, who was a doctor, an older man who was traveling with Baba. And so he stopped me to talk with me. And of course, that I was happy to talk with this senior Margi who I felt knew Baba very well. And we talked a little bit. And then Dr. Patak said, you know, we're going to make a football team and we'll play the Margis. And I thought, well, he's maybe just talking, but maybe there's enough of the group from India and they can make a football team, whatever. I was taking it a little seriously, shall we say. And then he said, but we're going to beat you, your team. And I thought, well, how can they beat us? There's so many young athletic Margis here. And he said, Baba will be our goalie. And again, as I said just now, I took that seriously, which I probably should not have taken seriously. But all the way as we left shortly after that and walking to Baba's house, and much of that afternoon, I wondered, will Baba really be their goalie? And of course, as I say, I didn't know Dr. Patak well enough to know that either he was imagining things or he was just out and out joking. And of course, that football game never did transpire. So there was of course DMC on Baba's birthday there, and contrary to what the regulation should have been, we did of course Kashiki and then Tandava, and the Tandava was not against regulations, but we lit some how to say torches with fire, which is probably purely illegal. But we had a great Tandava with that, and very quickly we would put out the flames after the Tandava. And of course, the DMC was very moving. I don't remember what Baba's discourse was at that time, but we can find that if one is interested. So I was, of course, a bit disappointed or a little sad that I didn't get personal contact. But as I said, I knew there's other stops along the way. So let's see what happens. So I went with some Margis and we went to Eckenrod, a small town in Western Germany, a village. And some Margis had been renting a big house there. So they graciously gave it to Baba and his group for the days that Baba would be there. And by this time, I realized that if I'm traveling all this time and we see Baba maybe twice a day, and if we're really lucky, maybe someone can go on field walk with him once in a while, I realized there's not much to do. So I decided, let me volunteer to be a VSS guard. And Dada Dharma Vedananda, who was the chief secretary for VSS, he, of course, was happy that I would sign up for this duty. So every day I had one duty or another standing here or there in a proper place, proper position for Baba. And one day, Baba's room was on the second floor, I should say. And one day I was standing at the bottom of the stairs on the ground floor, which was where my duty was at that time as VSS guard. And Baba came by walking with Dada Ramananda, his personal assistant. And I had, of course, seen Baba many times over the last week or 10 days. And as far as I know, in the human sense, he had not noticed me, although, of course, in the spiritual sense, he knew all about me. And Baba stopped and he asked me something. Now, these many years later, I can't remember what Baba asked, but Baba asked me a simple question. It wasn't complex. And I just stood there, perhaps my mouth was open. My mind was so open that I couldn't hold anything in it. Baba's talking to me, and I was completely tongue-tied. I had nothing I could say. Baba waited for a short time, and then he said he turned and talked to Dada Ramananda, saying, "The boy is very quiet today." And of course, after they went upstairs smiling at each other or with each other, I started to think of many things I could have said. But at the time when Baba is standing right in front of me, talking to me, I had nothing to say. Anyway, there weren't so many Margis, of course, at Ekenrod compared to the number at Fiesh. And finally, I was able to sign up for personal contact. So I go there at the right time. And Dada Ramananda is sitting at a table on a chair, sitting by a table not far from the entrance to Baba's door. And I come there, and at that time I was a Prout adoptee in USA. I was living in the city of Seattle in the far northwest, where we had a Prout office. And so Dada takes my name, my posting, and maybe my age. I don't remember, one or two other things he might have asked. And then he gave me a duty to make so many protests within I think 3 months. And I said, yes, Dada, no problem. And later on, but I would have said yes to anything. If he asked me to start a unit on Mars, I would have said yes, because I just wanted to see Baba. And later on, I calculated how many Prout adoptees I would have to make in the next 3 months. And if I worked a 40-hour-a-week job, as many people do, and made one protest per hour, I would have perhaps reached Dada's target. In truth, I did not reach his target, but at least I took it sincerely. So then I go up to Baba's door and I start to knock, as you do when you enter someone's room, and Dada just motioned me go in. And I went in and did Sastang Pranam and sat in front of Baba. Baba was sitting on his bed on a cot, so that perhaps my eyes were a little above the level of his knees or his waist, something like that. And Baba, as I knew he asked me my name, my posting, and a few other things. And later I understood that, of course, Baba knows this, but I think part of the reason Baba does this is to help us calm down, help orient us to sitting in front of Baba. And then Baba started talking about various things, spiritual things. And at one point, after he'd been talking for not long, a couple minutes, a few minutes, he started asking me various questions. Now, again, after so many years, I can't remember the precise questions he was asking. But the point I want to make is that the way Bob asked the questions, kind of like rhetorical questions, you might say, he simply wanted me to say yes. He might ask, now, my son, shall we work to make a better human society? Some questions like that. And I would say, yes, Baba. And then he would ask other questions in that same mood or that same tone. And after each one, he would pause for a moment and I would say, yes, Baba. And this went on for several questions. Then he asked me another question in the same line with no different tone or drama or anything. He said, now, my son, you do your work for the good of society, don't you? And my mind just switched in some way. It was not intellectual, it was not logical, just my mind switched. And I said, no, Baba, I do my work for you. And then Baba, he had been very animated and moving his hands and moving at least his right arm to make certain gestures to emphasize the mood he was in. And then when I said this, no, Baba, I do my work for you, he paused, he put his hands on his lap, on his legs, and then he looked at me. He didn't say a word, he just looked straight into my eyes. And in a sense, now I know this is not the cosmic or spiritual sense, but in one sort of sense, I felt he was paying real attention to me for the first time. Now, this again is for my benefit, since he knows everything anyway, anytime, anywhere. But again, for my benefit, he was simply pausing, being quiet, looking deep into my eyes as if he's saying something, noticing perhaps some sanskars of mine, whatever. And he kept that look, hardly blinking his eyes for some time. And then, in a more quiet, more still type of mood, he kept talking for a little while longer about spiritual ideas. At the end, he put his hands on my head in a blessing, and he said, I believe he would have said something in Sanskrit. And then he said, in English, he said, "You will do many great things for the entire universe," which I felt was a good blessing from my guru. Uh, then shortly after that, I left, went to another room, and as Dada had instructed, just did some meditation. And then I went and joined the rest of the Margis. One story which is more, say, a light touch. At the end of the time in Neckenrot, I stayed with some other Margis to clean up, organize things, and bring everything back to Mines where we were going. Someone had a car. Pretty much, I guess everyone had left before us. And as we got on the road after driving hardly a minute or two, we saw some Dadas in their car. Their car, we stopped because obviously they were having some trouble and their car had broken down. They were following Baba to the airport and they needed to get to the airport with Baba. And we had a car that worked. So they basically kicked us out of our car politely. And we, pardon me, we took all of our personal belongings plus various other things that belonged to the office that we had to get back to Mines. And so there were 4 or 5 of us, and one or two of them were German. So they knew where to walk to the local bus stop, and we waited for a bus that would take us, I guess, to another town and then take us to Mines. And we're sitting on this bus. There were a few passengers on it, and we had our, as I said, our personal luggage and various bags of other things. One of those bags, as I found out, was a bag of skulls because the Dadas had been doing Kapalik at some point. And the bus is going around this corner, that corner, stopping, starting, and lurching a little bit and going fast and slow. And at some point, perhaps because the driver braked the car, the bus, that bag of skulls fell down. It wasn't tied at the top very well, and the skulls rolled all the way across the bus from back to front. So we quickly and as calmly as we could, we picked up the skulls and put them in the bag as if someone had dropped a loaf of bread out of their supermarket bag. Later, one of the Margis, who was German, told me that the passengers had just kind of taken it in a light way, as if it was a joke of some sort. So they didn't get very fussed about it. But for a minute or two, we were pretty nervous about what might happen. So at this point in the journey, I was not sure how long I would follow Baba in Europe. It was my first time in Europe. I had limited money, but still, that was not a real problem at that point. And I started to understand what Baba's complete itinerary was. So the next stop was in Timmern. So to get to Timmern, it was easier to go to Hanover, where we had our sectorial Prout office. I believe that was there was one Jakarta we had in Hanover. So I hitched up to Hanover, and instead of going straight to Timmern, I was asked if I could stay for a day or so and help clean up the Hanover Jagrati, so it was proper for Baba. So I did that, and then I got a ride to Timmern. And when I got there, as I say, it was a day or two late. The energy in Timmern was so intense, so high. Rarely have I seen any Ananda Marga function that had such a high energy. The kirtan was incredible. Just the way everyone was feeling, and Baba's talks, his darshan was just at a very high level. This was also, as you may know, this was also the only place outside of India where Baba ever gave Avadhúta Diksha to two acharyas who became Avadhúta at that time. And I heard later that one of Baba's darshans, he said, this was like a DMC talk, but I did not give mudra, or some words to that effect, Baba said. So it was, for the days we were there, it was really crowded. Sleeping was just like almost in a tomb or something, and it was, our quarters were so close. But we were with Baba, and that's all that mattered. It didn't matter where we were or what the conditions were. We were with Baba, so it was great. Then we were in Hanover for a couple of days, where I had the fortune to once or twice be standing as VSS guard next to Baba or in front and to the side of Baba when he was um, giving darshan. And I don't remember much else of what happened in Hanover, but then at that point I was a bit tired of traveling, and I thought, well, maybe I can just go to the Proud office in Denmark, because I knew the Dadas and some of the Margis like Krishna Dev. Um, but then I found a ride. We found a ride. Me and a friend. We found a ride with some Margis to Rotterdam, and there were a few small adventures along the way, nothing terribly significant. And we arrived in Rotterdam, and in Netherlands, some of you would know, uh, buildings tend to be very close together. And we stayed in a house which was rented by some Margis, where the stairway was almost like climbing a mountain. It was so steep and it was so narrow. You could almost get claustrophobia going up the stairs. But anyway, we got there and found a place to sleep. And there were two buildings which had been put together by making a hallway between them. And we stayed in various rooms. A number of us slept in the Dharma Chakra room and just packed up our bags in the morning and put them in another room. It was quite crowded. And I again kept up with my VSS duty. And one day I was assigned to be VSS guard in front of Baba's room at the time when he would be giving his darshan. I was disappointed, but duty is duty, and if I have the opportunity to serve Baba in whatever way, let me do it. So I knew I was going down there to take the guard duty at, let's say it was 1:30 p.m. I don't remember, but let's just say 1:30. And just before I walked downstairs to get to the front of Baba's room where I would stand, I heard some shouting and yelling. And as I got down there, I understood that some Margis had kind of burst into Baba's room because they wanted to ask him something. Now, this is completely inappropriate in Ananda Marga. So they had been ushered out quickly. And when I got there, Baba was yelling and shouting at Dada Ramananda, his personal assistant. And there were a couple of Indian Margis there, and maybe one Indian Acharya, along with me and two or three other European Margis. And we were listening. We asked the Indian Margis, oh, what is Baba saying? But they were obviously too captivated by listening to Baba, so they didn't really translate for us. Anyway, Baba was scolding very loudly Ramananda for a couple of minutes or more. And then it was quiet. And now from Baba's room to the darshan room, Baba went through, you can say, a back door, which is a passageway about 3 meters, 2 or 3 meters long, from Baba's room to the room that was made for the darshan room. So Baba was quiet, and then a moment later I heard Parampita Baba Ki several times, so I realized Baba's giving darshan now. But me, with my limited mind, I thought, oh, Baba's just been in such a bad mood. He was scolding Dada Ramananda so badly. It probably won't be a very interesting darshan. Anyway, I finished my duty, and later in the afternoon, I met my friend Jyotishwar, also from USA, a good friend of mine, and I think I kind of asked him, oh, how was the darshan? And he said, oh, it was so nice, so sweet, so vibrating. Of course, Jyotishwar and no other Margi knew about this incident where Baba had been scolding Dada Ramananda. So they had no expectations except it would be that way. But then I realized, yes, for Baba to change his mood in a split second is nothing. Baba has complete control over everything. So naturally, his mood of anger for Dada Ramananda was only for that moment. So another couple of incidents in Rotterdam. People who have been with Baba, or some of you who may remember when Baba was here, you know that before every darshan and at every airport, we had a system where brothers would do Kaushiki, a group of brothers, and sisters would do Kaushiki, and then a group of brothers, maybe the same or a different group, would do Tandava. And then immediately after the Tandava, Baba would give darshan. So we were in this narrow Dharma Chakra room, and I was in the group that did both Kaushiki of the brothers and Tandava. And I knew from experience over the last couple of weeks that immediately after we finished Tandava, the Margis who had been giving us a semicircle of space. As soon as we finished Tandava, they would rush up to sit as close as they could for Baba. And I was thinking during Tandava, oh, I wish, somehow we could be the ones to rush up there. But we were a little distant away from Baba's dais, so I didn't think we would get close to Baba. But by some good fortune, when we finished Tandava, all the Margis pushed us, not consciously, not on purpose, they pushed us to the front. So myself and two other brothers who had been doing Tandava, we were sitting right under Baba, right in front of Baba. You couldn't get closer. And there was myself, and in the middle was a brother Divyamurti, an American Margi who was living in Europe at that time. I had known him in the States. And there was Bodhishwar on the other side. And Bodhishwar had been Baba's host in Switzerland. He was a Bhukti Pradhan in that part of Switzerland at that time. And it was obvious to all of us during the time Baba was in Fiesh that he always gave a lot of attention to Bodhishwar. Somehow Bodhishwar had the extremely good karma or good samskara to always attract Baba's attention, or Baba was always asking about Bodhishwar. So we're sitting there in front of Baba, kneeling on our knees and with our hands in namaskar position, and I'm looking at Baba, and somehow the only thing on my mind during that darshan, just the mood I was in, was the only thing on my mind was, Baba, please look at me. That's the only thing I thought of. Baba, please look at me. But of course, Baba was looking here and there and all around. There's many Margis and Acharyas there. And as a good speaker, Baba knows that you look at different people, different parts of the room, and observe the people in his case. And the whole time he's talking, I'm thinking, Baba, please look at me. Please look at me, Baba. Of course, I didn't say a word, but I was just thinking that. And then at some point I'm thinking, well, Bodhishwar, Baba's been looking at Bodhishwar a bit, and Bodhishwar always knows how to attract Baba's attention. So what is Bodhishwar doing? Is he sitting in a different position that's attracting Baba? So I'm sitting like this, looking up at Baba. And then for a moment, I looked over at Bodhishwar, and then I looked back at Baba. And just at that moment, when I looked up at Baba, he was taking his eyes off of me. So the only time during the whole long darshan that he looked at me was when I was not looking at him. Of course, there's a message there. And part of the message I understood was, when Ananda Murti, when Sadhguru was talking, listen to what he's saying, which I, of course, had not been doing. I had just been thinking about me and Baba, not Baba's words. So that was a learning experience. Another day, I was assigned to go with Baba in the evening for his field walk, but not as a guest, but as a VSS guard. And the background is, we were in a crowded situation those several days in Rotterdam, and there wasn't much to do except during the time we were with Baba. And I was in a bit of a morose, pessimistic state of mind. And much of the day I was just thinking, no, no, no. For example, I might be thinking, is it nice being here in Rotterdam? No, of course it was raining, so it wasn't so nice. Is it nice being in this house and being with all the Margis? And many other thoughts I had during the day. And I was always thinking, no, I'm not happy. No, I don't want to be here. No, I'm not looking forward to this or that. My mind was in a very, you can say, negative state, superficially, but still negative. And then we went on field walk with Baba. And there were, of course, 4 guards, 2 in front, I think 2 GV guards and 2 VSS guards. And there was a group with Baba, walking with him, a group of Margi guests, maybe 8 or 10 or 12 people, I don't remember. And there were the guards, and I was in back of Baba on his right. And because of the way the situation was, I was probably 2 or 3, maybe more meters, 2 or 3 meters from Baba, maybe a bit more. And the other guard was on the other side of Baba, even with me, and we were all walking steadily. And still, my mind was in a negative state. No, 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 no. Thinking no about many things or anything. And at one point, it was curious. We went around a corner, and I could see Baba directly. I wasn't, somehow for that moment, I was not blocked by the Margis and Acharyas standing near him. And in my silly mind, I was thinking, I hope Baba doesn't realize what I'm thinking now, because I don't like to have negative thoughts that disturb Baba. But that thought just flitted through me very quickly. And then the walk was, I think it was a fairly long walk, I think 30 or 45 minutes. And at the end, we all stand in a line uh, waiting for Baba to get into his car with the driver and PA and one or two others. Then after Baba's in his car, we all go to our cars and follow back to the Jagrati in Rotterdam. Um, so Baba is walking past each of us, and when Baba gets to me, he's walking from my right to my left, so to speak. And just before Baba gets to me, he says quietly, I don't think anyone else heard it. Baba said something to me like, uh, "Is this a man-made park?" Something like that. And I said, "Yes, Baba." And then just as Baba's in front of me, he says quietly, he says, "Now the boy says yes." And then he walks on. And then we rushed to our cars after that. And as I was in the car and I could settle down a little bit, I realized, oh no, what just happened? And of course, Baba was just indicating to me a couple of things. One is he was indicating try to be positive and or be positive. And of course, another thing he was indicating was perhaps that as he said many times, you are never alone or you are never alone or helpless. And it was quite an eye-opening, mind-opening, heart-opening experience for me to realize that to get that direct experience that Baba was uh, was always with me. So following Baba around Europe as I'm doing with my personal experiences. Others, of course, have many more experiences to tell. From there, I was in Paris for a few days. Jyotishwar and I and some other Margis were passing through Paris on our way to Valencia in Spain, where Baba would have his next stop after Sweden. Baba had also been to Berlin, which I didn't go to. It would have been hard to get to Berlin at that time. Um, and Stockholm, I guess, for me seemed a little bit far away to go. So from Netherlands, we went down to Paris, stayed for a few days with Ramakrishna and Susmita. There was myself and a few Margis and Acharyas there. And it was a pleasant break. I guess it was my first time in that great city of Paris also. And from there, I took a bus ride to Madrid, where the climate was quite different than Northern Europe. It was hot. This was, I guess, the end of May. I don't remember the dates exactly. And then, of course, we went to Valencia, and they had rented a monastery there for Baba to stay at, and for the Margis, we were assigned our rooms. I remember I was in a room with Divya Murti and I guess a couple of other Margis, and Baba came. Now, uh, I've always been a bit shy about leading the cheer of Parampita Baba Ki. I've never felt my voice is strong enough to resonate throughout the room and things like that. So I never really, hardly if at all, had ever led the chant of Parampita Baba Ki, say after Dharma Chakra or after the kirtan before Dharma Chakra. I'd always been very shy about that. So we're in Valencia and Baba had not come yet. We've set up everything and maybe we'd been there a few hours a day, I don't remember. And then Baba's coming. And one Didi came to me. I don't remember who it was, a young Didi, probably from a European background, Australian, I don't know. And she said, Baba's coming now. You have to say Parampita Baba Ki when he comes around the corner. And I'm thinking, oh no. So the first time I've ever led a chant of Parampita Baba Ki was in front of Baba. So what I learned from that, I don't know. But when you have a duty to the guru, especially, you have to do that duty. So I did that, and we all went inside. And as the stories go, you can read this in Dada Dharma-Vedananda's book and other places. Baba only stayed overnight because one of the priests was very upset with this strange Indian yogi coming. So Baba left just that maybe the next morning or the middle of the night, I don't know, and stayed in a Margi's flat in Valencia. And every day we would all take a bus or two and go to the house, to the flat where they were staying, where Baba was staying, and have his darshan. And it was a normal residential building. And so with all our shoes outside in the hallway, it was creating quite a mess and quite a disturbance for the neighbors. But somehow they managed to put up with us. I don't remember much of what happened in Valencia as far as Baba's darshan or experiences, except one thing that can be useful in the future is Baba said to the Marquis in Spain, he said, if you want to make a good commercial project in a master unit in Spain, you should you should grow sweet lemons from Israel. And I don't know that he said anything more about that, but as far as I know, up until now, uh, no one has done that. Years ago, I remember one Dada in Israel looking for a source of sweet lemons, uh, but they were never found, and maybe they will be someday, and the Margis can plant that in a mass unit in Spain. So after Valencia, going on with Baba's tour, we went up to Leon. And we had a Jagrati in Leon as I remember, in an old building. It was not exactly pristine or beautiful place. So as I heard, and as we knew, the acharyas decided they would have Baba stay in a hotel. It would be more convenient, more comfortable for him. But apparently what Baba said, words to the effect of, if we have a Jagrati, why am I staying in a hotel? So immediately we had to rush and renovate or refurbish that Jagrati very quickly. I remember I was in charge of painting the stairwell, the handles on the stairwell, and maybe the walls also. I don't remember. Someone had to put a toilet in the printing press room, which was right next to what was assigned as Baba's room. And somehow, in a miraculously short time, the Jagrati was renovated. And of course, as I realized later, and others maybe realized earlier than me, in one way, what Baba was doing was just telling the Margis to get your Jagrati in better shape. If he had said that in India, in Calcutta or Ranchi, whatever, and said, oh, you have a Jagrati in Leon, you should make it a little cleaner, paint the walls, etc., nothing much would have happened. But when Baba is right there, everything happens. So one thing for me that happened in Leon was when Baba was flying in to the airport, I was there at the airport along with a number of other Margis and Acharyas. And I, of course, had been doing Tandav and Kashiki for most of Baba's tour in different places, not every time, but many times. And this particular time, what had happened, we were in the airport. They had set up a chair where Baba would sit in the corner. And the Dadas had found a live snake. Now, it's probably difficult enough to convince the authorities that we're going to do the strange dance with the brothers and sisters wearing strange clothes and wearing a red mark on their head. And maybe we'll have some skulls or something. I don't know what they said. So that was strange enough to tell the airport authorities. But by this time, they had gotten a live snake, which is part of the Tandava dance. And they were not going to tell the authorities that they had a live snake. So I was assigned to do Tandava. And that was great. Always good to do Tandava in front of Baba. And with a live snake to make it all the more exciting. But the Dada who arranged this told me, okay, put on the proper clothing, the green pants, etc., and the red mark, but put your regular clothes on top of that until it's time to do Tandava. So I thought, okay, that's okay. And I was excited because of the snake, and just as I said, just doing Tandava. But at the last minute, more or less, a French Marquis brother came. And this is France. You don't have an American or anyone else from another nationality doing Tandava if you have a local brother there. So this brother got ready, and he was the one who did Tandava with the snake. And I was, of course, really upset. I wanted to do Tandava. I was assigned to it. I don't think I was feeling selfish, but I was just feeling sad that I couldn't do Tandava in front of Baba at that time. And I was standing several meters from Baba, certainly, and the brother doing Tandava was, in a sense, between me and Baba. I was standing, in a sense, behind and to the left of that brother. And all the time he was doing Tandava, or most of the time, Baba was looking at me and smiling. So that was perhaps a better reward than doing Tandava in front of Baba. But I was still in this mood of, oh, I wanted to do Tandava. Why couldn't I do it? So after the brother finished Tandava, and people had done Kaushiki before that, um, the Margis formed a semicircle around Baba so we could listen to what he had to say. And of course, there were some bhajans played before that. And there were a couple of VSS guards, the Margi semicircle, then a couple of VSS guards, and then, pardon me, then Dada Ramananda, I guess, sitting next to Baba. And I just got in some mood, and I just walked past the Margis and past the VSS guards and sat very close to Baba. And again, while they were playing bhajans, Baba was mainly just smiling at me. Obviously, he knew how disappointed I was that I couldn't do Tandava in front of him. So as I said just now, he gave me perhaps a better reward by just giving me his attention for that period of time. Yeah. And Leon went on, a crowded Jagrati, a lot of Margis, and it was a very good experience, of course, with Baba's darshans twice a day. Then, of course, we go to Valencia, and we're excited. We know this is going to be Baba's last stop. So it would be a really, shall we say, dramatic experience, a very moving experience with Baba the last time before he heads back to India. And of course, it was a very moving experience, but for different reasons, because as we all know, Baba was not allowed in Italy. So we all gathered in the retreat place. I guess it was outside of Verona or maybe inside Verona. I don't know. And the Italian Margis made various demonstrations, protests outside. But we were told emphatically for the non-Italian Margis to not be involved because we could get deported. So we were all inside, but the Margis during this protest against Baba getting deported, they did get some good newspaper coverage. So a little bit of a diversion chronologically is that many years later, I was talking with one Dada in Singapore, and we recalled, Baba getting deported from Verona, from Italy. And by that time, we understood from what Baba had said that, as I recall, Baba said, it was someone higher than the government, higher than the president of Italy, who decided that Baba should not enter Italy. And obviously, the only person with a higher position, so to speak, would have been the Pope. So this Dada, I believe he was SS Manila at that time. We were talking one day in Singapore. This was in the early 1990s, and recalling times when Baba was not allowed in a country. And one time was Italy. And Italy, for years after that, it's not unusual anyway, was having a lot of economic problems and other political and social problems. And was that related to Baba not getting in? Who knows? Baba also was not allowed in the USA. He went to Jamaica instead. And the Dada and I recalled that the next year was the presidential election, and the man who had the sitting president, Jimmy Carter, was not elected, which is unusual. Usually a president will get elected the second time. But Dada was implying that perhaps you can say bad karma visited President Carter for not allowing Baba in the country. In Philippines, one time Baba was either deported or not allowed in. I don't remember what. And the president at that time was later, deposed. And I believe, someone can correct me, but I believe he wasn't even allowed to be buried in his home country. So Dada was recalling these incidents where when Baba is not allowed in a place, not that Baba is an evil, angry person like the God of the Old Testament, but it just, some sanskaras will come your way if you can't even allow Baba to come in your country. And on the other hand, other countries where Baba did go, maybe not every country, not all the time, they seem to have good fortune after that. This was Dada's analysis, and if one would go into the history of it, one might find that he's correct to a good degree. So for me, Europe was not quite over, but one curious incident happened after Baba was deported. I stayed in Italy for some days. Then I took a train up to Denmark. I was a Prout optee, and I was going to go stay in the Prout office for some time. And if I can set the situation, I'm a young guy, American with probably a beard, long hair, blue jeans, just dressed and just an old backpack, whatever. And by the time I get to the Danish border, I'd been on a train more or less for 24 hours. And so at the border, where all the Germans and French and everyone else would just get let in, they looked at my passport, American passport, which isn't really bad. Um, but they saw how I was, how I looked, and like a hippie, they would say. And so they took me off the train, and they asked how much money I had. And I had, by that time, my money had pretty much run out. I had coins from England, France, Spain, uh, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, maybe Belgium or Netherlands, and which are basically worthless outside of their own home country. And I had not much else. And they were not happy to let me in, but okay, where are you staying? And fortunately, I had the name of Krishna Dev, Tony Hickey, who was staying there at the time. And I gave them the address. And then I guess they talked with each other, and then they said, okay, you can go. Later, I found out they probably let me in because our Proud office at that time was in perhaps the best suburb of Denmark, or one of the best suburbs. And they would have thought, as one Margie told me, they probably thought, if this guy, even though he doesn't have any money, so to speak of, if he's staying in that place, his friends must have good money, um, and they'll take care of him. So then they let me in. So I'm at this point, as I look back later, uh, reviewing my time in Europe, I realized that this time in Copenhagen was kind of you might say, a decompression time. I had just been with Baba almost every day for a month. Very intense experience for me, of course. And the good fortune was, here in Denmark, we had a big Jagrati rented, and nice big yard and garden to do meditation if I wanted. So every day I would get up early. This was some years before Bob had given Panchajanya, but still I would be up every day at probably by 5 o'clock, more or less, and take a bath and go out to the garden. It was June, I guess, so the weather was great. And I would just do long, wonderful meditation every day. It was some of the best meditation I've had, which recalls another story in Denmark. Another day, one of the days we went to town, myself and Dada Jyotirupananda, who I knew not so closely, but fairly well, and some other Margies, and he had to run some errands, so we went with him. And it was in the morning when we went, and we drove in someone's car. And on the way back, um, I was looking forward to getting back to the Jagrati, do some meditation, have some lunch, and do other things in the afternoon. All those 2 weeks or so I stayed in Denmark, I was helping with the Prout work. Krishna Dev, I think, was editing a newsletter, which I helped with, and other things I would do. So on that day, I was looking forward. Okay, we've finished our errands. Uh, let's get back to the Jagrati. But on the way, on the highway, they noticed there was a river down a little bit of a slope off the side of the road, and then a nice river. And they said, let's go stop here and do meditation. And so we pulled the car off into some driving area, some parking area. And they all rushed out of the car. And I said, no, 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 I just want to go back to the Jagrati. Why do they want to stop here? I was in one of those moods again. And anyway, finally, what to do? So I'm in a grumbly mood. And I get out of the car and I get down on the hillside, toward the river where the others were sitting. And I'm still in a very grumbly mood. And I close my eyes for meditation. And before I could even do my shuddhis, my mind was flying very high. I was just in some ecstasy. I can't define it spiritually in any way, if it fits any certain category. But for the whole time I sat in meditation, I was just in ecstasy for no reason and with no planning. As I said, I didn't even have time to do my shuddhis, and my mind just jumped up to some very high place. So the last incident in Denmark before I headed back to London and then back to Seattle where I was living. I was planning. I had I guess, an open ticket. By that time, I had gotten some money from the States, so I could travel, and um, um, I was planning to leave on a certain day. Let's say it was a Monday. I have no idea what it was now. And I told everyone, okay, I'm leaving tomorrow. I didn't have to leave that day, but I felt I'm going to leave tomorrow. And Dada Jyotirupananda, being the ruler, the lord of all, at least perhaps in his mind, um, he said, no, no, you stay another day or two. You don't have to leave. Let's just have a good time. And I said, no, no, I'm going to leave tomorrow. And someone would obviously take me to the train station, and then I'd get on the train from Denmark, from Copenhagen to London. And he said, no, no, stay. And I said, no, Dad, I'm leaving tomorrow. And so in the morning, I get up, I take a shower, I more or less packed, and I was doing my meditation. But on that day, because I didn't have a lot of time, I felt I was sitting by my bed, which was near the door, and I'm doing my meditation. And partway through my meditation, I hear a knock on the door, and I grumbled, but okay, they need someone. So I said hello, and it was one Margi LFT sister who was working with Dada Jyotirupananda a lot, and she said, Jai Krishna, Dada would like to talk to you. And I said, well, I'm doing my meditation. And anyway, we went back and forth for a while, but finally I got up and I went to talk to Dada. She escorted me down there. I felt almost like she was my jailer, and I was going to hear my sentence right then, because I knew Dada was not going to just give me a going away present and say goodbye. I knew there was something else in his mind. So I come inside, sit down by the chair, in a chair across from him, and he starts saying all the reasons I should stay in Denmark another day or two. And I start saying all the reasons I should leave right now. And he says, no, what about this? And I say, no, what about that? And we went back and forth for an hour. I was completely fixed that I was going to leave that day to go to London, for the only reason that that was what was in my mind. And looking back, I think Dada Jyotirupananda was fixed that I would stay another day only because he's the boss, or he was the boss. He's a great man. He was a great soul, but that's, I felt how he was thinking. And so we argued for an hour. And at the end of that hour, I went back, finished my meditation, had breakfast, and then I stayed for another day or two, because I had gone 1 hour with dueling with Dada Jyotirupananda, which I felt pretty proud of. But it's hard to beat Dada Jyotirupananda in a discussion or argument like that. So I enjoyed the next day or two in Denmark and got back to London in plenty of time for my flight back to Seattle. And that was my experience in Europe on the material level. But of course, there is the spiritual, the psychic development that happens, which is not always obvious right away. You might say the good sanskaras. So one story, which I think it may relate to my time in Europe. I came back to the States, and then not long after that, I had to go to my hometown, Indianapolis, for my brother's wedding. I was the best man. I was a Margi then, and still living in my home country. And after the wedding, I was there for about a week or 10 days, whatever. And then after the wedding, I planned to drive to Denver, a town about 1,000 miles, 1,600 kilometers west of Indianapolis. And to do that, I got a car, which is what they call a driveway car. Someone is moving to another city, so you just pay a deposit and you drive their car to their town, and then you give them the keys. They give you the deposit back if there's no damage, and that's fine. So on Monday morning, I had called an agency and I rented one of the cars. I went and picked it up, but I had no time limit, no time frame. So Monday I stayed, I saw some friends, and Tuesday I stayed, and sometime on Tuesday I decided, well, I'm not doing much here, so I'll leave tomorrow morning on Wednesday. So on Wednesday I left, driving this car west, and I left in sometime early mid-morning, and took a lunch break, I'm sure, and then about after 8 or 9 hours of driving, I thought, let me take an evening break, do some meditation, have some dinner. and then I'll drive a couple hours more. And I was in Kansas by that time. As I said, I'd probably driven 8 or 9 hours, maybe more. And I saw a sign for a parking area where people go to, along the highways in the US. They have these areas where you can go use the toilet, maybe get some food at a cafe and just relax for a while until you start driving again. So I think I was east of the town of Topeka driving west, and I saw that there was one of these parking areas just in a few miles. So I thought, okay, let me stop there. It's about 5 o'clock now. I've been driving a lot. I'll do some meditation and then drive longer. But just before we got to this parking area, this rest area, as they call it, I saw there was another rest area about an hour away. And I thought, well, it's easier for me to drive in the daytime instead of the nighttime. So I drove another hour, more or less an hour, and I got to this other rest area. And I stopped there. I washed up, cleaned up a bit and relaxed a little bit. And then I got my mat out and I sat near my car on a grassy area, a little bit away from everyone else they were listening to radios and barbecuing their meat and all these things. So I had a mat and I sat on the mat a little bit from my car in a grassy area. And I just sit down to do my meditation. And then I hear someone say, "Excuse me." And I thought, well, maybe I'm in someone's area or something, whatever. And I opened my eyes. I had just started my meditation, so it was not a problem. And there was a young couple there. I guess they were probably in their early 30s, professional people. And they told me that they sometimes in their hometown nearby, they would go to see a psychic counselor, someone who had counseling training, but also had psychic abilities to help them with their problems. And they had seen her various times before, and she had helped them with this or that problem. And this time they went to see they went to see her on a Monday evening. Now I'm talking to them on a Wednesday evening. And they told me that the reason they're here is because when they saw their counselor on Monday evening, she had told them, if you want an answer to your problem, go to this rest area on Wednesday evening at sunset, and you'll find someone you can talk to. So they see me doing meditation. They see everyone else, barbecuing, playing frisbee, listening to their radios, drinking beer, etc. So they obviously thought I'm the one person who could possibly help them. And we talked for a while. I don't know if I could solve their problems. I mainly told them about meditation. But the main point here is I wondered, how was it on Monday evening when I didn't even know when I was leaving, that this woman would know where I would be Wednesday evening? And even an hour and a half before this couple found me, I didn't know where I would be. But somehow, through some cosmic insight, they were able to find me. So life goes on. 2 years passed, from almost 2 years from this time that I'd seen Baba. I had a job in Seattle, but at some point I felt I need some recharging again of my spiritual energy, shall we say. And at that time I found out Baba was doing some sort of process in India, in Calcutta, called, I didn't even hardly could pronounce it in those days, Dharma Samiksha. Someone told me about it. We were at a retreat in the West, in the middle of the USA. I was still living in Seattle. I was living in a Jagrati, actually, with a number of other Margis and paying my rent every month. And I just left Seattle on my way to the retreat. And then I was planning to go back to Seattle, but I found out about this Dharma Samiksha. I had my passport with me, fortunately. And I was inspired, and so I booked a ticket on a flight from New York to go to India with some Margis and Acharyas, and we eventually got to Calcutta. And it was quite a strange animal, Calcutta. I'd been in Europe. I'd been no, I had not been in Mexico yet, but I'd been in various places. And Calcutta was a very strange place. And we were staying in South Extension, of course, most of us. And it was a difficult situation physically. But Baba was giving Dharma Samiksha, so that's why we're there. And of course, there was darshan every day, or well, I think there was darshan every day also. And finally, after the second or third day I was there, I was in the group for Dharma Samiksha, and Baba talked to me and told me a few things. And he gave some asanas. And later I looked at the asanas, and it was curious because Bob had given me fish pose, but not shoulder stand. So I mentioned this to one Dada, and we went to talk to Dada Vijayananda. Maybe Dada had written it down wrong, but Dada looked very closely through his notes under my name, Jai Krishna. And he saw, no, those are the asanas that Baba gave you, the same asanas morning and evening, and no shoulder stand, only fish pose, which was unusual. But that was okay. Then shortly after that, I went to Ananda Nagar, where I had never been. But I guess the evening before I left for Ananda Nagar, or the day before, I was in central Calcutta, and I met Vasudev, who I'd known a little bit in Fiesh. And Vasudev to me was kind of in those days was kind of one of the superstars of Ananda Marga. He was a good musician, and everyone knew him. So we had dinner together. And then the next day, with a group of Margis, I went to Ananda Nagar. And as soon as we arrived in Ananda Nagar, I'd been feeling a little bit wheezy on the overnight train. I got extremely sick. And for days and days, I was hardly conscious. I was just completely sick. No need to go into the details, but I could hardly do meditation. I couldn't eat. There wasn't much water there, much drinkable water. So that was difficult also. And finally, they took me to another town nearby where I could see a doctor. I stayed there was an Ananda Marga school there, and one Margi went with me. And the people, of course, were very looking at me kind of strangely, because here they'd never perhaps seen someone, a Western or a white person in their village, or certainly sitting at the doctor's office with them. And he gave me some medication. And later that day, I vomited quite a bit, and then I was pretty much well. And the next day, or a day or two later, I went back to Calcutta. And then I took a flight, eventually going to Europe. Now, this was interesting. I was still feeling very weak. And I was going to be traveling to France with Kamala, a sister from USA who now lives in Australia for many years. She spoke French. She had lived in France, where she had become a Margi. And we were going to an international Prout convention, which was happening there in a town outside of some hours away from Paris. And Kamal and I were staying in different places, but we were going to meet at the Calcutta airport. From Calcutta, we go to Bombay. From Bombay, we would take a flight transiting in Delhi and then on to Paris. And I got on actually now I remember, I missed the flight to Bombay because I was still very weak and not feeling very well. So I got on an evening flight, and they had booked us in a hotel. And I got to the hotel, and I looked on their ledger to see where Kamala, knowing her legal name, I wanted to see where Kamala was. She wasn't in that hotel. This was strange. And the next morning, she wasn't on the flight. Later, we found out that she had been arrested in Calcutta by the police because of being a Margi, and didn't make the flight, of course. So I'm on a flight completely alone from Mumbai to Paris via Delhi. I'm not feeling well. I don't know French, don't know really any of the Margis in France. I'd met a few, Ramakrishna, Guru Charan, etc., but I had no contact details for them. What am I going to do in France? Anyway, I'm on the flight, and after some hours, I fell asleep, and I woke up and I looked around, and some instinct drew me to look at someone, and I realized that Guru Charan was on that flight. He was actually a tour guide in those days, his main profession, and he was just bringing a group of French tourists back from India, unrelated to Dharma Samiksha. So by Baba's grace, I stayed with him. His family was there at the airport. We went to Rennes, where they lived, and I recovered for several days, just mainly sleeping and just relaxing, resting. And then we had the Prout convention. Guru Charan, as I recall, made some very quick arrangements to go back to toward the end of Dharma Samiksha and meet Baba there. So again, a little bit of Baba's grace, meeting someone I know on a flight from India to Paris. What else to say? I was then in LFT in Mexico for nearly a year and had a lot of challenges there. The police raided our Jagrati one time because Indira Gandhi was coming to Mexico, and she had no doubt given them the name of Ananda Marga as a place, as a group that was dangerous or whatever. So I think, well, I know that the police were much more dangerous than the Margis, but we had to scatter from the Jagrati for some days just to avoid being around the police. Life went on, and at some point, I decided to be an acharya, a decision which I'm happy about, but it took me a long time to reach that decision. And Baba's grace, I was able to reach that decision, and um, unlike many of the Western workers, non-Indian workers, I did my training in Varanasi, which was uh, pretty difficult in some ways, but it was also very wonderful. Many challenges were there, a lot of learning. Um, one uh, one thing which I always recall is our examiner Dada Dasarat, who I had heard stories about him, and he was of course very close to Baba. And this is maybe not very significant, but um, whenever I would be with Dada Dasarat for the exam, when I would look into his eyes, I felt that I wasn't just seeing his eyes, but I was seeing Baba through him. I don't know if I don't mean to be measuring one person against another person, but for me, when I was with Dada Dasarat, I felt uh, more than with anyone else that I was connecting with Baba. I felt, as I felt with a few people, but I felt particularly with Dada Dasarat, that his mind, his consciousness was just controlled by Baba in a way. That Baba was what was on his mind and nothing else. So that was always, I wasn't spending much time with him. Of course, he would come for a couple of days, maybe every month or every few weeks to give examinations to the trainees. And it was always a good experience, a learning experience, having exams with him. And then, feeling that this person is deeply connected with our guru. Yeah. So training was over after several months. Dada, I was there with, there were two or three other non-Indian trainees that were with me pretty much the whole time. And Dada Nigamananda, near the end of our training, was quite perplexed in a way with us. And he was perplexed because we hadn't gotten sick. In Varanasi, if you're not used to the climate, to the food, etc., it's very easy. And I guess most of the non-Indian trainees who had been there would get pretty sick. But somehow the two or three of us had survived training with no health problems. And Dada was not angry or upset, but he was perplexed that this had happened. One incident not related to us that happened while I was in training was that Indira Gandhi was assassinated at that time. And it didn't affect us directly, but being in India and reading the newspapers, the English newspapers every day, we saw that it was, quite a traumatic time in India. And I'm sure many of the Indian Dadas and Didis and Margis could say much more about it than I could, because I was remotely there in the training center. But I did realize even there that our Sikh brothers and sisters suffered quite a lot for the actions of one Sikh bodyguard. And that, of course, was a sad thing to see. But it was, of course, one of the very I would say, traumatic experiences of India as a whole during that during that era. Um, these are, some experiences with Baba. I of course can remember others. One time, uh, before I went to training in the summer of 1984, I was in Calcutta a lot. I had lost some traveler's checks in the USA, and I reported them just before I left for India, just before I got on the flight. So I was able to report them only in Calcutta, and because of bureaucracy and lack of communication, it took a long time before those traveler's checks were replaced. So I was largely in India during much of that time, in Calcutta, and by good fortune, I often got to see Baba. And one day when I was there, uh, small but interesting incident, and I'll give a little bit of a broader view of this. Baba every day would uh, during that time period, he would go for a small walk in his garden with some guests, explaining about the plants, observing the plants, talking about other things. And he would have given some Prabhat Sangeet earlier in that day or the day before. And some Margis or Acharyas would always be singing that Prabhat Sangeet for Baba. Baba would go, after doing his garden walk, shall we say, Baba would generally go on field walk. This would be around noontime, midday. And as Baba left, we're all singing Prabhat Sangeet. And the the rule is we should be singing Prabhat Sangeet or Kirtan the whole time Baba's on field walk, 30 or 40 minutes, an hour perhaps. So Baba's going out in the car outside, and they turn onto the road, and we're all singing Prabhat Sangeet. And someone looks and says, he's gone now, meaning the car had gone around the corner. Then we all stop singing. Some people would go rest, some would do meditation, some would go have lunch somewhere. And someone's always on the lookout. There was no mobile phones in those days. Um, and when we see Baba's car coming around the corner, we'd all rush to the area there in front of where he parks the car and start singing again, as if we had never stopped. And Baba would come in and get out of the car. And usually this particular day and many days, he would sit in a chair and listen to us singing Prabhat Sangeet. And Baba would correct any lines or any tune that was wrong. And then the person would, or the small group would be singing it again. And then at the end, when Baba was satisfied that we had all the words right and all the tune, the rhythm right, Baba would be satisfied. And then he would say, there was a group of us this particular day, as with any day, there was probably 20 or 30 of us there, not many people. And Baba would be sitting back in his chair, and he would say, did you like that song? And we'd say, yes, Baba. And he'd say, are you sure? Or something like that. And we'd say, yes, Baba. He'd say, because if you don't want it, we can tear it up. And then he would motion as if he's tearing a piece of paper and throw it over his shoulders. And he'd laugh as if the father is talking to the children or the teacher's talking to the students. And you'd say, and he'd say, we can throw it away if you don't want it. Words that, no, Baba, we want the song. We want the song. He'd say, okay, we'll keep the song. And then we'd sing some more songs. And this particular day, I'm standing in the back. Back means not far away. There was only, as I say, 20 or 30 people there, maybe less. And in front of me, a little bit to my left, was Jayanta Kumar from Australia, who I had gotten to know that year, or maybe I'd known him previously. And I noticed I could see Baba in a straight line, but Jayanta was to my left and closer to Baba. And I noticed all the time, virtually all the time, Baba, as far as I could see, was looking at Jayanta. And I thought how lucky Jayanta is. Baba's looking at him all the time. And then after Baba went inside, we'd sang a couple of songs, and then Baba went inside. And then I started to ask Jayanta Kumar, how did it feel? But a couple of people came up to me and asked me, oh, how did that feel? What do you mean? Baba was looking at you the whole time. I say, no, he was looking at Jayanta. No, he was looking at you. Some strange sanskar I had, quite different than the time in Lyon some years earlier, because Baba was looking at me all the time and smiling, but as far as I could tell, he was just looking at Jayanta. my good luck or bad luck, I'm not sure which. Yeah. So these are some stories with Baba after getting posted in Cairo sector. For a while, I couldn't go to India, uh, expenses and work and visas and all that. But after a while, I started going as regularly as I could to India uh, to see Baba. And um, I, of course, went to various DMCs. I was fortunate to be there when Baba gave the first talks on microvita and yeah, and other subjects also. And there were, of course, good experiences, which I'm sorry to say, I'm not thinking of many specific details at that time, at this moment. But it was always good and always a challenge. Sometimes the challenge was getting into India. Uh, they see, a man with a beard, a Westerner, and they might start quizzing you about where you're going and what you're doing here. But somehow, we could always prove that and we could always prove that we were just tourists coming to India. And so that turned out to be okay generally. Some difficulties, but generally it was not a big problem. And then one day, um, in yeah, in 1990, I was staying a lot in Cairo at that time, where we had a nice Jagrati rented in the south part of the city, and some rumor was there that Baba was sick, and then some more rumor that Baba was no longer with us, which was ridiculous. And so we called India, which was not easy in Cairo because home phones would not have long distance uh, uh, processing. So we had to trek down to a call center a bit from the Jagrati and and call people. And then finally, we found out that yes, Baba seemed to have left his physical body. So myself and a number of others, we as quickly as we could, we got tickets to India. I believe we landed in Delhi, and from there, uh, with the help of one Dada particularly, I remember we were able to quickly get tickets on the train to Calcutta. And this was, I think, by the time I got to Calcutta, or we got to Calcutta, I was with a group of people. It was Thursday. Um, and still, for me, I could not believe that Baba was really not with us anymore. We did see his body, which was on a table, whatever, under glass or whatever, and people were allowed to go walk around that a number of hours a day. Um, but in my mind, um, it was another one of Baba's million dramas. For some reason, he was doing this, but we all knew that, according to what we thought he had said, he would not leave his body till 2005 or something like that. 50 years after he had said some things to, I believe, Nagina or others. And this was only 1990, so Baba is just doing some drama. But as we all know, it was not a drama. It was a real drama. It was perhaps the greatest drama any of us had ever had in this lifetime, to see that Baba had decided to depart his physical body. And I do remember the cremation, the ceremony leading up to it. A lot of us, of course, were all there in Tulgil at that time. It was, of course, very crowded, and I did feel at that time there was some very special energy there, and as others have suggested, there were perhaps many non-physical beings and many devas around there. Of course, when Paramarpusha and Taraka Brahma is taking leave of a certain planet for a period of time, naturally it will attract many people, not only the Margis and the acharyas. So that was, yeah, for me, I think the saddest time I've ever had. We all know that Baba did not leave us accidentally, incidentally. We all know that it was all completely his plan. But still, when your father, that one who is closest to you spiritually, is gone now, um, and you didn't have time to say goodbye, then this is an extremely painful process. Others can tell perhaps more of their experiences there. I don't recall any particular mystical experiences I had at that during that day or those days I was in in Calcutta. But it was in every way the saddest experience that I can have or ever did have before or after that. Later on, though, when I was back in Cairo sector in my place, I started musing over why Baba chose this time. Basically, I believe he told one Dada, "I will take some rest now," which he had probably never said before. And we know that the rest from this planet is not forever, but it's going to be a long time by our meager human standards. But I thought about it, and I thought this was a complete surprise. No one had time to say, "Baba, Baba, we love you. Please stay. Uh, give me some last advice. What is your last message for us?" Etc. 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 And I realized that if Baba had stayed until 2005, and many of us, all of us, would have known that now is the time coming when Baba has said he would leave his body, it would probably be more painful, more chaotic. Uh, and I say this with all love and respect to all my brothers and sisters. We probably would have caused a lot more trouble for Baba uh, uh, than he would have deserved. He deserved no trouble, of course, although he took much trouble on himself throughout this physical lifetime. But so then I understood Baba had to make it in a way a surprise, so that uh, so that we would not be in more agony than we would have been if he had waited till 2005. So life went on. Perhaps there will be time to talk other times about more experiences related to Baba and related to Ananda Marga. But these are some of my experiences. As I say, more can be shared later. But I particularly wanted to orient this more toward my experiences in Europe during Baba's time, although wherever one is with Baba, it's great. Thank you. Namaskar.